At first, when the Windrush scandal had broken, I didn't know that I was part of the Windrush generation until that sort of time period was established by government. And so I then embraced the idea of this Windrush, the term actually, Windrush generation, and to recognize I'm a part of that, even though I came as a child.
My name is Nkechi Allen Dawson, and I'm from Liberia in West Africa. I came to this country in 2003 as a political asylum seeker, and I experienced many hardships along the way. My reasoning for this project is because I feel that often the voices of Black people in the United Kingdom are often misheard, misunderstood, unheard, and oftentimes invisible. I think that through this project, my hope and my aspiration is that inherited trauma that a lot of those from the Windrush generation and other Africans experience on a daily basis becomes a thing of the past. When we are able to normalize these conversations, we are able to inspire future generations through educating them, through our stories, our shared lived experience, our shared traumas, and giving them the resources, equipping them with the armor that they need to be able to face the world that we're living in today. For me, ensuring that future generations see themselves represented and reflected back in a society that is so rich in culture and diversity is of paramount importance. I just wish that when I came to this country 21 years ago, that I also had role models like myself and like the participants you'll be hearing from through this video. I too hope that I was able to have that opportunity, and I hope that younger generations can see representation in all echelons of society.
My name is Hadassah. I live in Newport, and my family background is we are of Jamaican heritage. I grew up firstly in Jamaica, and I left there at the age 11. At that time, I was living with my grandparents because our parents had immigrated to the UK. And so I was with my sisters and my brother. So I had a good childhood, and at the age of 11, I was sent for. Now, that was a term that was used for people who were in this country who sent for their children to come and join them. Because our parents had left to come to the UK in 1963. So in 1967, I was sent for, along with my brother, who was 9, and my sister, who was 7.
My family background is from the Caribbean St. Kitts. Locals are called Kittitians, so I kind of like that, being called a Kittitian. I am one of 5, the second of 5, and I was born in St. Kitts. Well, my father came over to UK, and he came straight to Wales when he landed, and then later on he sent for my mother. My mother came over. My father sadly has died, but my mother is alive and kicking, and in fact she has a much more social life than I do. I have to make an appointment to see her. If I turn up at her door, she's almost invariably doing some activity or travelling somewhere with her group. But growing up in St. Kitts, I was with lots of other cousins whose mother and father had left to better themselves, make a life for themselves and a better life for their family. So I was left behind, as indeed was my elder sister. And it was kind of sort of like free, and I was very small and little, so I had freedom to roam and do what I wanted to do. And then my parents sent for me and my sister Vida, and we travelled to UK. and met by my mother and my father with a big fur coat, which itched like hell because we just come from the Caribbean. The sun is shining. We don't have need for fur coats and warm clothing and heavy clothing. So that was quite something. And we came to Wales. I arrived in the UK just before my 6th birthday.
I'm very mindful of my parents who came. My dad came first to this country, and I remember having conversations with him and my mother. You know, why did you come? Why did you come to the UK? And why did you come to Wales? And why did you come to Newport? You know, everybody was going to London and Brixton and Birmingham and all those big things. But first and foremost, why did you leave this beautiful island called St. Kitts? You know, where a lot of people would today call paradise. And you know, Dad and Mum gave the same sort of message that you know, you were taught English, you spoke English, you know, that was a mother tongue. You everything on the currency was the Queen, you know. So there was, you know, God Save Our Queen was being sung, Rule Britannia was being sung, Land of Hope and Glory was being heard. So when England sort of came calling, it was sort of natural. Yeah, I'm going to go because I'm going to be liked there. They want me there. You know, everything about St. Kitts was English, having been colonised many years ago.
My name is Vernesta. I live in Newport. My family origin is from St. Lucia in the Caribbean. We live not far from the sea because St. Lucia has got like an isthmus when the ships come in, and you got like a landlocked harbour. So I would say about 5 minutes brisk walking, and I'd stand to watch the big ships coming in. We'd go to the beach, not far from the beach, about 15 minutes, and anything for a party in the island. So any nice day, any weekend thing, any birthday, you end up with on the beach, you know, beach party. The Windrush ship, because I came on one of the ships that was coming over to UK, and we had to climb on the steps and go into the ship, which was quite a big ship. And well, lots of other people from different islands, because from there we went to Curacao, is a Dutch island. Then we made our way to UK, which took about 12 days between sea and sky.
My family are Jamaicans. I was born in Jamaica, and I traveled to the United Kingdom at the age of 19. When I was 2 years of age, and my mothers leave their children with the other member of the family, and an accident occurred with children. As I was told, we were all eating, and an accident occurred, and one of the utensils poked me in the eye, and I lost sight. Now we're going back 1940, early 1940s, at that point when medical intervention of that caliber wasn't really available. So people tend to wait and see. But wait and see became the trauma of me suffering until I was 12, before that I was taken away. And during the time, and that's the worst, this is the traumatic part, you know, kids are so cruel. They call me all sorts of names. And of course, when you can't see properly and you have to squint, you know, in the sunlight and all like that, that was very difficult. And my education suffered.
I felt excited because I was seeing my elder sister again. I was with two of my siblings from Jamaica, and also that I was going to be meeting my new sister who was here. But my happiness was short-lived with my family in Newport. Within 2 weeks, I was taken to Bradford to go and live with my aunt who was there. And so I was now on my own with her. She was a loving woman. She was wonderful, but I felt alone. I felt as if I had been abandoned. I felt quite rejected and just wanted really to be with my siblings. And as a result of that, there were quite a few traumas really with my aunt growing up as a teenager. She felt that I was rebellious. I don't think I was. I think it was acting out because I just felt so abandoned.
I think the overriding emotion that I felt when I came here to a family I didn't really know was, I don't want to be here. And clearly I was a child, so I was crying a lot and emotionally was hard. And I have no doubt that there were other signs that I don't recall now, but I know it was certainly a wrench. I do know that I wanted to go home. I wanted to go home to Mama, and home is St. Kitts and Mama was my grandmother. And that's all I can recall that was my overriding emotion, that I wasn't home in UK. All through infant school, I didn't feel that this is a home for me. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel happy. I wasn't happy at all. Junior school, I think by the time I got to junior school, I started to feel assimilated into the community, into the British way of life. And you have to learn pretty quick.
You know, it wasn't this land of hope and glory. It wasn't this place where, you know, the streets were lined with gold and everything. It was tough. It was hard. And, you know, my mother says people didn't like them. You know, and I don't think anybody from the Windrush generation was really ready for that, or not even aware that that would happen, because they were asked to come here. They, you know, your country called and we came.
Now just consider the trauma of growing up and with all the stigma of being called names and being rejected, feeling left out, and coming into a country. And let me tell you something, you know, coming into white man country is not the nicest thing to come to be when you haven't got a clue what's going down. And yes, I can tell you, it wasn't very easy because they didn't like you. You were black.
The work I currently do is I'm an anti-racist consultant and trainer. So I go around the whole of the UK talking about anti-racism specifically, about race. Over the last few years, we've educated sort of the police, 5,000 police staff members. We've been to prisons, we've been to schools, local authorities, residential schools. Basically what we look at is we look at trying to make this uncomfortable topic as comfortable as possible. And it's really interesting because knowing how my parents and my siblings and myself experienced racism, I sort of seem to fall into that. As an advocate for positive change, I think that's what I do. I try and make people understand the complexities of racism and how it impacts on people, because, you know, it's not actually my job, and I say that it's my life. You know, every day racism finds me. I don't want it to, in some capacity, but it does. And I'm aware of every day it found my parents. They didn't want it to, but it did.
For my own journey, I mean, I went quite far in my educational pursuits in that I became a teacher. Before all of that, however, when I applied to the teacher training college, I was, due to what had happened to me in school, due to the lack of sort of expectations of the teachers, and I felt that my language was not good enough to be a teacher. So even though I applied to become a teacher, I was really quite afraid that I was not going to be accepted because I didn't have the language capital at the time to be one. I was accepted to become a teacher, and I went into teaching, believe it or not. English and business studies were my subject areas. I then went to teach in the Bahamas. I taught there for 10 years, and then taught in Dudley in Birmingham. I taught in Sheffield. I taught in Newport and in Bristol. So I went from someone who didn't feel confident enough to speak, that my language wasn't good enough, to someone who then taught in our schools as well as in colleges and universities. My father was a very well self-educated man, and he wanted his family to be educated. That was one of the reasons he came. For him, education was everything, and all of his children, he lived to see that, because all of us, by God's grace, are educated to a bachelor's, master's degree. And my sister Yvette, who was sick on the plane when we came, she has a doctorate. So all of us has realized the dream of our father.
When I left school, I joined a building merchants where my sister already worked. So I left school, and on the Monday I started working at building merchants. And lunchtime I would walk past the Army Careers office, which is in Newport town centre. And I always liked the look of the uniform. They were all so smart. And I'm kind of a rigid person anyway. I like things to be just so. My house has never changed. You know, my family will tell you that, you know, everything has to be where it has to be, and I can tell if it's been moved. So I walked past this and I thought, I'd like to join the army. I wonder if I could join the army. There wasn't any examples, no role models, nothing that I thought I wanted to do it because I saw another black person in uniform, or I saw another black person doing this or achieving that. It was just something I wanted to do. And facetiously, I would say, because I kind of liked uniforms, I would say that. So I went in one lunchtime and I took the test and I passed.
I was the chap who developed the rapid cutting tool for the carpet and textile industry in 1964-66. Yeah. From there on, they become tufted, and all the cutting tool for the carpet industry was revolutionized because they were using on steel, and I was creating a carbide cutting tool which lasted a lot longer. I was the first black person to become production manager in an engineering work in Newport. I introduced black people into that engineering work in Newport. I was the first black person to write a series of people's story in Newport. I was the first black man to create a literature exhibition in 2010 in Newport. And I am proud of the fact that I have written 7 novels, and each one is all about my cultural heritage. And today, I am proud to be a Windrush boy. And each of us, in our own way, should celebrate being a Windrush person, because somebody is listening.
I have honoured them by serving this country, and I got a medal for it. So I was able to go to Buckingham Palace and go through the front doors and be treated like a guest and not the help. I've met some royal family, which is lovely, but the best thing was the fact that my mother and my brothers and my sisters were able to come with me to Buckingham Palace and see me get an honour from the state for the work that I do.
I feel now that my vocation is what frames me. And I didn't realize all of what I went through was going to culminate in me being a pastor of a church. And so as a pastor, it's then looking at people, helping them and making them feel that they're not abandoned, that they're not rejected, that they are loved, you know, and that they have the potential to be great.
We were told that if you came over to Britain and you train here, although the syllabus was the same in the Caribbean, but if you train here, your certificate or whatever you get would be priceless. You could go anywhere around the world once you've trained over here. And Peter and I, we got married, and I came and then training here, you know, instead. So started mid-60s, in St. Willis Hospital, then the Quint Hospital. And I always had this thing about midwifery. I wanted to be a midwife to help women. And the first prize they ever gave, I got most promising midwife. Sometimes when you're working, you don't think of yourself as being worthy because society made you feel, people made you feel you were unworthy because when you faced all the discrimination, you didn't think you were good at all. And looking back at it, and I think, well, I did contribute, and I contribute a lot. But when I had the OBE, I was shocked. I still can't believe it, why me? And there's a lot of my colleagues, I think, who are just as good. But I never think of myself, it was for me. I think it was all of us who came here. Some sink, some had to swim to get where they were, and some of us just battled it and got where we were. So I probably was one of those who battled, and I'm like a tennis ball. You batter me down and I'll come back up again. What I think I was so the pied de resistance was being nominated for Midwife of the Year 2006. I think that touched me more so, because it was a profession I loved and I gave it my all. I knew nothing about the plaque. My son knew, nobody said a word to me. I just thought it's a walk towards memory lane. And I got there and I was in total shock that the staff were all there cheering and clapping when I walked in. And I sat under the plaque. I still didn't notice it.
Whilst I was in my lower sixth at the time, I was doing A-levels, and some of my friends, they were working in a large supermarket at the weekends, so Friday evenings and all day Saturday, and they said that the supermarket was recruiting and needed people, so I should apply. So I did, and I was told by the supermarket that there was no vacancy. And so when I went back to tell my friends that there was no vacancy, they said, but that's not true. We know there are vacancies. And so they were saying that they had other friends who could go, and these other friends were white, and they went, and those friends got the job. Then we realized that this was all to do with color, why I was not given the job. So my friends at the time, they were very supportive, and they challenged the manager as to why I didn't get this job. Well, I think the manager then realized that he was cornered and decided that he would give me a job, but I would not be able to work on a Friday evening or on a Saturday. So he said I could work Monday to Thursday between 5 and 8. And if I didn't take it, that was it. So he gave me a job, but the challenge was, I was at school, and so working every evening between 5 and 8 would be, brought into the time when you'd be doing your homework and that sort of thing. So he thought that he would sabotage me getting this job. Thankfully, I had strong faith in different things, so I took the job and went on. But it was just, I knew I was being discriminated against because of my skin color.
It was rough at times, very rough between patients who would call you all the names, that's in general as well, and between the staff who weren't nice then. It's quite a rough ride. But when we came here, as I said, people turned their back on us. We faced the height of racism and discrimination. That's the early days, because you had no race relation laws then. And even if you had it then in the 60s, the mid-60s, late 60s, it didn't do anything. You were either, you didn't report people because most of the time it would be, oh, don't worry about that. But for you, deep down, it hurt because you were just as good as them, probably even better. And, the opportunities that you would have to look at, and you'd have to work 10 times more than somebody who was born a white person, in fact, even if the work was rubbish. But, you put everything into it, and sometimes you weren't, how would I say, you weren't praised for it.
There was no black person working within the organization. I brought in 2 black people. And believe you me, nobody likes me for it, because nobody wants their place to become an African state. But no one wants to get rid of me either, because I know what makes money, and I could make the money for the company. So nobody give me any headache.
I think looking back, I was quite resilient. I think half the times I would take people on and think about it after, you know, and challenge them.
Well, if you saw the picture of my intake, I am the only black woman in my intake, and the experience was everything out of my comfort zone, absolutely everything, as it would be, I would imagine, for most people. We were put into bunk rooms, you know, where there are 6 beds in the room in my platoon, and I recall one of the young ladies from London had told me not to put my black hands on her stuff, otherwise she would stab me.
And I think a lot of our young people are still feeling that disconnect. They are, even in the categories that are used to describe their ethnicity, you know, they are British black or African Caribbean or black Caribbean. Why aren't they just British? There's an appendage to that. And so for some, it's still finding that, as I say, for some, because many feel British. I mean, I feel British. I didn't even know how British I was until I lived abroad and realized just how British I had assimilated the ways here.
I think there is, in all honesty, for me, I don't feel that there has ever been a time that I have not felt non-othered. Never, not even now. And despite what I've done, despite where I've been, I have done it anyway, despite the feeling that I know I'm different.
I'd like to see for the future where our youngsters can hold their heads up high and say, I'm British, with all of the things that make me up, and my Jamaican heritage, my Barbadian heritage, whatever that is, and still be seen as a British person who can contribute significantly and not being labelled as the first black or the first Asian.
The contribution the Windrush generation has made to Britain has been vast and, to my mind, wholly unrecognised. When we celebrate Windrush or Black History Month or anything that celebrates diversity in UK, I genuinely feel it's us doing the celebrating. My sentiments is that Britain should be doing the celebrating. Britain should be thanking the Windrush generation, should be thanking any person of colour that has come here to work and to contribute and to strive and to help rebuild a country that was devastated by war.
During my time in the educational field, I realised that a lot had not been done for Black, Asian, minority ethnic children, young people. So we started a mentoring program for them, going back to the mentoring, which was called the Windsor Junior Fellowship. That was a way of identifying children who had the potential to achieve and making sure that they then had mentors from their own communities to enable them to learn how to actually study.
I've always had a connection with St. Kitts, and it's always been for me to take my children to St. Kitts. I remember going to St. Kitts for the first time with my own family. I went for 3 weeks and I stayed in the family house. It's knowing where I'm from. I think that's vitally important. Knowing how I got to be where I am and knowing the responsibility I have to my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren when they come, and ensuring that they get aware of their roots. You know, for many years I've taken my children back to St. Kitts. You know, one, because it's a beautiful place, and two, because I need them to know where they are from and I need them to know their legacy. I've been able to take my grandchildren there as well, you know, so that in time then they could take their children, and then, you know, St. Kitts then will always be in their minds and their hearts.
I am proud to say that we are the great pioneers, those of us who survive until today. And believe you me, you young people out there, anytime you look at an old man or an old woman who came here between 1947 until 1962, they are the people who make the way right for what we are now enjoying.
I know we have a long way to go still, you know, but I think society should look at people as people. Don't judge them because they're a different color or come from a different country and think they don't know anything, they don't know what they're doing. And I always thought, sometimes I thought, I'm brighter than a lot of you all because I knew all this history. Nobody knew my history. And it took Windrush for people to ask about my story.
I think we can inspire future generations by constantly bringing down barriers, by doing things that's not expected of people of colour. If you enjoy it, if you have an interest in it, go for it, have a go, do it. Because unless they see somebody like me or like you doing things, they may not think that it's a possibility for them.
Young people have a choice. And if young people don't take advantage of the choice they are given now, whether it's what I'm saying or whether it's what my friend or whether it was my whoever experienced Windrush is saying to you, you have a choice. Try and make it the right one.
People came as Windrush, they had to pay their own fare to come here. And when they came, they started contributing straight away to the economy because they started to buy different things, they started to rent places, they started to work. They contributed immediately as they got here and got work. So it wasn't a handout. They didn't come to take, they came to build. And our youngsters need to know that and feel it. It's not just head knowledge, there's got to be this heart knowledge. I'm a part of this. And I think British government, it starts with British government acknowledging and appreciating. That will go a long way in making people feel that they belong.
My only problem is I can hardly walk because I got slip disc. I can't see very well. But today I am happy, really happy, because I can say to you, I have made a difference. And I'm proud of it. Thank you.